Hello, this is RV Vagabond Jerry, and today I'm in Clayton, New York, and I have been in a lot of car museums, motorcycle museums, various transportation museums, and airplane museums. I've never even heard of a boat museum. So when I found this one, I figured I got to do it. So let's go take a look at the museum, and at the very end of this video, I've got something really important to tell you, so please hold on for that. Let's take a look inside. The first boat they have out front is a Chris Craft from 1938, one of the most well-known boat brands. And by the way, when the owners of Chris Craft wanted to retire, which is just a few years ago, they sold out the entire business to Winnebago. Here's a real nice map of the St. Lawrence River. And by the way, the Thousand Island dressing was actually named because of what looks like 1,000 islands in the St. Lawrence River.
Thousand Islands in many parts of North America, it has been part of the development of our culture over the last 150 years. Over time, we produced some wonderfully designed and built boats, beautiful works of artistry, craftsmanship, and engineering. At AVM, we seek to showcase these objects to give our visitors a better understanding of that shared history.
In the last 150 years, the Thousand Islands became a tourist and vacation spot. In the 1870s through the 1920s, there was what's called the Gilded Age, when there were very opulent, large hotels. And as train service was directed along the St. Lawrence River or northward, people were able to get here within 24 hours. The steamers would take people to the hotels on the islands, to their private homes in some cases, or to the smaller communities.
Unlike areas on Long Island Sound or Cape Cod, you had to have a boat to get to most of the nice property around here, which really limited the pool of who could afford to have an island property here. But once motorboats became available, a lot of people were able to build cottages on islands and get back and forth with their own powerboats. So powerboating really made residency in this area possible. The Antique Boat Museum really began as a boat show. In 1965, there was a boat show in Clayton, centered around one boat called Idle Oaks, which had just been restored. The Youngs family restored it, and to celebrate the restoration, they put together this little show of their boat and other antique boats in the region. And it took off. They did it the next year, and we've done it every year since. One of the important things to realize about the history of the museum is that when the Antique Boat Show was established, there were not a lot of other people in other parts of the country that were collecting antique boats. And that changed in the 70s and 80s when all of a sudden it became kind of a national craze. The Shipyard Museum kind of found itself in this de facto role of being the museum for the antique boating community. And so in 1990, the then director Bill Danforth and the board of directors decided to change the name to the Antique Boat Museum to reflect our new, more national purview. The boat show was how the museum was founded, and it was really founded in a large measure as a social institution. We really attempt to be a gathering place. So we have a lot of events that just try to bring people together, but also just give them a beautiful experience that is contextualized by history.
Our boat show is traditionally regarded in the boating community as a real prestigious show for your boat to participate in, to compete in, and to win awards at.
Over the last 40 years, the campus has grown to incorporate a number of different buildings and galleries with specialty themes, as well as our yacht house and boat shop.
We are a big campus. There are such important things in each of our display buildings. Plan to have some time to walk around campus and really explore. We have a lot to see.
Duchess is the jewel in the crown of the boat museum. It was built in 1903 for George Bolt, and ever since it's been to the Thousand Islands, it has drawn attention. When you step on board, it takes you back to the early days of the Thousand Islands.
Pardon Me is one of the most extravagant single objects you will ever see. Pardon Me was designed in 1947. by John Hacker, the preeminent naval architect of his time, working in the field of speedboats. It was built by the Hutchinson Boat Works here in Alexandria Bay. It was designed for Charles Lyon, who had had a lifetime of custom speedboats and knew exactly what he wanted. Many of the boats in our collection are used and maintained as living objects. You could never write the perfect paragraph of text that would give people the same insight into what the boat was for and what it was about than you could just by taking them out in it.
The museum maintains a fleet of 5 or 6 mahogany beauties to support 2 on-water programs, one for the general public and one for Friends of the Museum. In-water fleet program for the general public offers 45-minute speedboat rides 7 days a week.
The skiff livery here at the museum gives the opportunity for our visitors to get out on the water. The skiff livery in general creates just a tie back to why people originally came to this region.
Antique boating is a love. It's what I call wood reverence. And to have the ability to work on those is very, very rewarding.
By preserving the experience of using the boats, we also preserve the skills necessary to maintain them, to build them new, and to repair them.
When we have a builder in residence, they're able to exchange and tell stories. The guests are that much more appreciative. The whole dynamic changes and the history comes to life.
People are very interested when they come in here. People have got so many questions that they ask you about refinishing. It's unbelievable. I had some here last week, it was from Texas, and I couldn't get rid of the guy. He just kept right on, you know. But that's all right. That's what we're here for.
The museum is a wealth of information for photographs, for lineage of ownership of boats and cottages and properties. You see a lot of people coming in to research once they start to figure out that we have that.
The museum is one of the key cultural institutions in the Thousand Islands, and because of the nature of the area, we are also one of the key attractions. Boating is part of the Thousand Islands. It's the heritage, it's the culture, it's what people do here.
Antique boating is about using and seeing and feeling the experience. To have it go in the water and act and behave and serve the culture like it did in the day.
By maintaining some of our boats in working condition, we also encourage the visitor to discover the love of boating and craftsmanship for themselves. We invite them to join us both on our campus and on the water.
This is what's known as a skiff. It's a really well-built canoe. And there's the pilot seat. And if you're looking for the perfect canoe, they have a bunch of them here. This is a really old one, and some that have sails. This one is what's called a dugout canoe. Very, very simple. And a wide board canoe, a little more unsimple. They call these sailing canoes. This one has a really big sail. This one is from 1890. It's been restored, but you can see some of the wear here. And this one, they've got glass over the top. They're calling it a luxury liner. Now these 3 canoes, the bottom one is aluminum, the middle one is fiberglass, and the top one is veneer. This boat was built in 1935. It's called a racing dinghy. And this one is from 1902. Sailing. And this is a canvas duck boat from 1907. This 19-foot boat has an interesting history. Originally had a steam engine replaced with this gasoline engine. Here's another one with the gas engine. And guess what kind of boat this is? It's a paddle wheel boat with hand cranks. This building has a lot more canoes. And this is the largest boat in here. It is a 34-footer from 1914. Let's look inside here. The engine is also a gasser. And guess what this is called? It is a skim boat, 1951. This is a workshop building. He's working on something here. There's the footloose. And they have some in the water on display here in their boathouse. Rose Blossom 2. Seems like an odd shape. This is back behind their buildings. Someone's coming in there. And let's see what this is. It's called the Duchess. Here's some info on it. Houseboat from 1903. 106 feet. And here's a history of the work that's been done on it. I've been on 3 houseboat trips when I was living in Utah, but they weren't anywhere near this big. I think there was only about 20-some people in the ones I went on. Here's another building with some mid-sized boats, I guess you would call them. Some of these they call runabouts, like this one. It's got leather seats. That one's from 1929. And here's a nice one from 1902. This one from 29. And this one is such nice mahogany. And this one is called the Speedster. You can whip her up to 40 miles an hour from 35. For 2 people only. This is a bigger one for a lot more people. Probably get 7 people in here. That's a 1948 model, and that one will go 45 miles an hour. Wow, $15,000 for this huge boat. Can you imagine that? This boat even has its own boat. That was a 43-footer. This one is 40. And here they've got a collection of outboard motors. And that is a 1958 speedboat. Actually a hydroplane. And this one is called the Whoopee. I'd buy a boat if the girls came with it. By the way, they do give boat rides at certain times. Here's a funny looking thing. Doesn't look too comfortable to sit there. This is what it is. From 1900. And here they have a modern wee lassie. And this last building is their Speedboat Collection. This one is from 1907. See the engine here. And this one goes back to 1929, called the Little One too. Let's look inside of it. And look at the pipes on this really big one. It's called the Dixie 2-3. Wow. Look at the driver's seat here. And this speedboat is something else. In fact, it says so right there. It doesn't say how fast it went. It's from 82. Here's some more info. This one is from 1924. Here's the very back end of it. The 26-footer. Here's a 25-footer from 1930 with the seating in the middle. 2 people, which, as it says here, it had a bad day. There are a lot more boats around. That's all I'm going to show you in this video. So now I have some place I'm going to go further down the highway and tell you what I was talking about before. Well, now I've driven 18 miles south of the Antique Boat Museum, and I'm going to show you the Tibbetts Point Lighthouse here. And while I'm showing you the lighthouse, I've got something I want to say about my recent travels. So let's take a look. And this point right here is where the St. Lawrence River, off to the right there, meets up with Lake Ontario on the left here. And what I recently found out is that the river doesn't flow into the lake. The lake flows into the river, which flows northerly, actually more northeasterly, into the ocean. And now that I think about it, that makes a lot of sense. I don't see the foghorn, but I guess it's up there somewhere. Well, there's the foghorns. It's on this side. So today ends the first half of my spring and summer adventure traveling the northeast states. I started out in Mississippi, went through Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, and now here in New York. And since this is the point where Lake Ontario starts in the northeast, my second half of my summer adventure will be traveling the south shores of all 5 Great Lakes, all the way from here, New York, over to west end of Lake Superior, near Duluth, Minnesota. I'm going to follow whichever road is the closest to the shoreline, all the way across the U.S. That is the southern shores of the Great Lakes. I hope you have been following me in my travels through these northeastern U.S. states, and continue to follow me on my continued journey to the south shores of the Great Lakes. And if you have any suggestions what I should look for along the way, along the south shores of the Great Lakes, then please comment below. and let me know, and I'll take a look at it. So please let me know how you've been enjoying my videos, or if you have anything critical to say that might help in the future. I'd be interested. Definitely interested to see what you have to say. Good day, folks.